Good afternoon. It is time. You know what time it is. It's time for the Uplift with Vision. I'm Reverend Patti Paris. I am here to chat with you about all things uplifting. Ernest Holmes had to say about this and that. You know, we've been looking into the writings of Ernest Holmes, so let's continue with that. But first, we'll pray in like we always do. And so what I know right here and now is that there is only spirit. It is the only activity and action in our lives. We know that the only power and presence that there is God, that it individualizes itself as everything, as all life everywhere. And as individual and as unique and as different we seem to be on the surface, what we know is at the root, at the base, we all spring from that same place. We all spring from the same power, the same presence, the same one, that there is unity behind diversity, and that unity is spirit. It is expressing itself. It is allowing itself to be known in form as all form. And so that we know all life is some part of the life of God's. We give great thanks for this. We know our unity with spirit and with each other. And so I step aside here and I let spirit lead the way through this conversation, knowing it is blessed. And so it is. So good afternoon. How are you doing this wonderful Monday afternoon? I want to talk a little bit about what Ernest Holmes had to say about government. I thought, why not? It is absolutely the thing that is on our minds, I think, mostly right now, isn't it? Considering the events of Wednesday and how it shocked a lot of us, most of us, I would think. And it caused us to really look at what's going on in this country and maybe with concern, maybe with fear, I don't know, but I want to allay that fear, and that is why I go back to the founder. I always go back to Dr. Ernest Holmes and what he had to say. And of course, he brings to mind quotes from, Abraham Lincoln and of course, how this country will endure, things like that. But more specifically, I wanted to research what Dr. Ernest Holmes had to say about the United States, about democracy, about government and governance. So that's where I started. I started with the prayer for my country. This is a prayer, an affirmative prayer, that Ernest Holmes wrote, I believe, in 1938. So this would have taken place before World War II, but in the lead up, of course, 38. So it was in the lead up to World War II. He was looking over at Europe and seeing clouds on the horizon over there. Things that were happening, the move toward fascism in Europe. World War I was over, 18 years before. And so it was this in-between place. And Ernest Holmes wrote this prayer for my country, and I want to read it to you. He writes, believing in the divine destiny of the United States of America and in the preservation of liberty, security, and self-expression for all, I offer this, my prayer for my country. I know that divine intelligence governs the destiny of the United States of America, directing the thought and the activity of all who guide its affairs. I know that success, prosperity, and happiness are the gifts of freedom and the divine heritage of everyone in this country, and that they are now operating in the affairs of every individual in this country. I know that divine guidance enlightens the collective mind of the people of this country, causing it to know that economic security may come to all without the loss of either personal freedom or individual self-expression. I know that no one can believe or be led to believe that personal freedom must be surrendered in order to ensure economic security for all. The all-knowing mind contains the answer to every problem which confronts this country. I know that every leader in this country is now directed by this all-knowing mind and has the knowledge of a complete solution for every problem. Each is impelled to act upon this knowledge to the end that abundance, security, and peace shall come to all. And I know that this spiritual democracy shall endure. guaranteeing to everyone in this country personal liberty, happiness, and self-expression. And I find that is a beautiful affirmative prayer. I can just feel, I feel it. I hope you do as well. If you would like, I can post this someplace. I can post it on the Vision website so that you can read it yourself. Maybe read it daily. Make a habit of reading it as a daily prayer, at least for now, for a while. And then I found this wonderful article that Dr. Holmes wrote about the prayer that he wrote, which I thought was very interesting. It was printed in the Science of Mind magazine in November of 1939, after the prayer for my country was written in the magazine, I think in 38, I'm not sure. Oh, anyway, so the editor of the magazine says, so many people were interested in prayer for my country, which appeared in September's magazine, he says that they asked Dr. Holmes to present this article to really go in depth about that prayer, to further explain what he meant when he wrote that prayer, what some of those lines meant. And so he did write an extensive article. This is wonderful. You can find all of this information in the archives. I think it's called scienceofmindarchives.org. And you can find a lot of these printings, articles that Dr. Holmes wrote, books that he wrote, talks that he gave, classes that he led. They have an extensive library of all things written and spoken by Ernest Holmes in the scienceofmindarchives.org. And if you want to do more research or deeper research than I am, good luck with that. No, really. It's a wonderful resource for you to have. I go there frequently. So he wrote this article in the November 39 issue of the Science of Mind magazine, and he just expounded on the prayer for my country. And so I read through it, and I found some really interesting quotes I want to share with you. He says that all lives are rooted in individual life. Well, we know this, right? Because this was really the main tenet of religious science, the science of mind and spirit, is that there is only one, right? Core concept number one, there is only one, there's only God. He goes on to write, in him we live, move, and have our being. Science and revelation alike lead us not only to a belief in this underlying unity, but to a certainty of it. Everything that exists is rooted in one final cause. As Emerson said, there is one mind common to all individual men. And so we know this, and like he said, science is proving what mystics have known intuitively, that there's only one. There's only one thing happening here, right? There's only energy, shifting and moving and changing. That's all there is. But we know that energy as sentient energy. We know it as the beloved. We know it as the divine life of God's. And we know that it moves in an intelligence according to a law that is impersonal and infallible. And then he goes on to say, to write in this article, the chief characteristics of nature, already granting her creativeness, are unity and variety. Unity binding the whole together, variety making possible the self-expression of the whole. So you can think of it as I think of it as like a tree. You can think of it as a tree where there is one trunk, but there are many branches. There's one root network, right? But many fingers, right? Root fingers. There is sets of branches with individual leaves at the end. So you can see where we are being shown over and over and over again, this multiplicity being created out of unity. There is one thing. It expresses itself in multiplicity, but it is never divided up by that multiplicity. It still exists as unity. And so that's what Ernest Holmes, and of course that's now what science is saying as well. There's only one thing. There's only one thing. There's only atoms and electrons, and they show up as everything. What is that old joke about, you can't trust atoms? Why? Because they make everything up. They make up everything. They do. They make up everything. Everything in the world, everything in the universe is made of atoms. It's the same stuff. And he goes on to say this: the two main drives that have dominated human evolution, self-preservation and an increasing desire for human liberty. We wish to live, and we wish to live fully self-expressed, of course. And that's why we yearn to live that authentic life. We yearn to bring forward from us that which we are here to do, right? We know that. We always have a desire on our heart. What is that thing you desire? What is that expression that you want to bring forth into fruition, into the world? That's what you're here to do. And once you do that, then something else will grab your attention. Something else will light your fire, right? And then you'll go on to do something else. We are here to repeat, to reenact the divine creative process of spirit through our own lives. God creates. We co-create using this same divine creative process. It is Spirit's desire to create and create more and create more. We were created in the image and likeness, and so it is within us to create and to create and to create more. Absolutely. So self-preservation and the increasing desire for human liberty to express freely who and what we are in the world. And Ernest Holmes goes on because, like I said, remember, this is 1938. 1939, this article is 39. So you could know that he saw the gathering storm clouds in Europe. He could see what was going on with fascism and the increasing rule of dictatorship in Europe. And so he writes this: in this day of dictatorships, those of us living in America should rededicate ourselves not only to the cause of freedom, but to the knowledge of how freedom has been obtained and how alone it may be maintained. No political system can continue to function where there are such divergent aims as democracy and totalitarianism. It would be well if everyone in this country were to understand that. Well, certainly it would be. And that was his caveat to us, wasn't it? That this democracy, this form of representative government we have should never, ever be taken for granted because it can be lost. He says, every liberty in which America considers worthwhile in the absolute state has been destroyed in the totalitarian governments. The freedom of the press, the freedom of the airways, the freedom of public speech, the freedom of spiritual worship has been ruthlessly trampled on in these countries. So he was warning us, really, that we mustn't take any of this for granted, and we should always treasure and care for our democracy, our representative form of government, or we can lose it. He goes on to say a lot more, but I want to go on to this next page where he says, we believe that the preservation of democracy or security and self-expression for all is possible for this country, right? The preservation of this sacred democracy is absolutely possible. We believe that the intelligence which has guided men of affairs to make possible the creation of vast wealth will also guide them to properly distribute that wealth. Now, he had great faith in people, didn't he? He had great faith that people do the right thing, that people who have accumulated in this country great wealth would also be guided to properly distribute that great wealth. I'm talking to you, Jeff Bezos. Now listen, it is really incumbent upon people like that, these billionaires who have made great fortunes in this country, and God bless them. I absolutely support anyone making great wealth in this country, but to also reward the employees that made it possible for you to get great wealth in this country. Because your employees were a big part of you being able to make money. So share the wealth, right? Reward your employees. Give to them who made your business a success. The same way we should all be paying our taxes. The same way we should all be supporting those public institutions like the police force and the fire department and the education department. They are all government-run places. They are all existing because of our taxes. We should be honored to pay our taxes. I know when I write a check to my IRS, when I have to pay, that's what I write. God, this is God, you know? This is God blessing our source and supply, that I have money to pay taxes because I've made money. What a gift that is, that I'm able to pay that because I am supporting those roads that, you know, Amazon drives its trucks on. Our tax money paid for those roads. Your tax money paid for those roads. His tax money should pay for them as well, right? Absolutely. Along with the fire department and the police department. We're all being protected by those wonderful departments. Our taxes pay for them. His taxes should pay for them as well, right? So we're all in this together, and that's what Ernest Holmes says. We all have an obligation. We all have an obligation for the health and the well-being. We believe, he goes on to say, we believe everyone has a desire to do this, that everyone really wishes the greatest good for the largest number of people. I will absolutely affirm that. I will affirm that. And I believe that that is true. And he finishes up this article by saying this. I want to read this to you. Every man in ordinary life and every leader in this country must know that abundance and security and peace can come to all. And we must know that those who are natural leaders in every field are inspired by divine intelligence, directed by the infinite will, and impelled by love into intelligently, systematically, and conclusively working out any solution to our problem. And we know if this is done, spiritual democracy will endure. This period of indecision, of uncertainty, and lack of faith will pass, and a future glorious beyond our fondest dreams will come to be our beloved country. I hope that reassures you. I hope that fills you with the faith that Ernest Holmes had, that it all works out. It all works out. And we move forward together in love, in joy, in sharing, in prosperity, in abundance, in love. I think I said love already, but I'll say it twice because we need more of it. It all comes out okay. Let's pray out. I give great thanks for these words of comfort. I know that Ernest Holmes knew. I know that as a divine, as a mystic, as a revelation, that Ernest Holmes knew what we know, that there is a divine state, that there is a divine presence, that there is a divine democracy, there is a spiritual governance, and that it unfolds in perfect order. That God is in charge and all is well. And contrary to conditions which may seem upsetting, we go to that deep place. We go to that well of perfect peace. We go to that place where we know that God is in charge and all is well. I give great thanks for this word. I know that it is truth spoken from the past, and I know it is truth spoken today. And I turn this over to the law, knowing it is done, and so it is. Amen. Good to get together with you. Thank you for tuning in. I'll see you tomorrow on another edition of The Uplift, from my heart to yours vision. We are one. We're walking through this together in love and in unity. See you tomorrow. Bye-bye.